So we're going to start in Shavasana. And I'm just going to have that folded blanket behind me. Got my bolster to the front of the mat, strapping a block to the side. And we're going to start knees up, feet wide. So just using the hands to roll down. And I'll make sure that the shoulders and neck are both being supported. So there is a little bit of an incline in that my pelvis is lower down than my middle back, but not a great deal. I'm taking the hands out to the side, and then we let the legs kind of TP in a little bit. Find a comfortable place for that to happen. And now we get a nice long neck, so we want to make sure that the head is supported. We're going to be here for a couple of minutes, just taking a little time to tune in. Sometimes it helps actually to have your right hand on your belly and left hand just a little bit above the navel. So as you breathe in, you can feel your diaphragm move through your fingertips. And that way you know that you are breathing through your belly. With this very slight elevation in the spine, slight incline, you get the beginnings of a mild chest opener. When the chest opens up, the shoulders move into a slightly different position, and that can make the muscles feel a little bit awkward, or just that they're sitting in an unusual place, not sitting where they would be if you were in a standing position. It'll take a little time for the body to kind of recognize and understand where it is and accept that actually this might be comfortable. Okay, I'm going to move from here. I'm going to wriggle down a little bit. You could, if you wanted to, just lift up and move that blanket just a fraction back, so now it's under the head, not underneath the shoulders. We'll take the arms out wide, bring the feet in towards the center line, close into the body for a little spinal twist. Now shimmy the hips over to the left and let the legs drop to the right. You can turn the head the opposite way if you wish. I'm just going to need to look at the clock on this side. So we're trying to let that left shoulder drop down to the floor. Relaxing the legs, breathing easy through the belly. It's a really gentle, passive stretch, just using gravity and body weight. And bring the knees back up and shimmy across to the opposite side. Take the legs down to the left. And then we'll bring ourselves back up again. So centering the spine, I'm going to roll gently onto my right side completely. So I want my chest vertical and square, and my heels are in line with my body. So there's about a 45-degree angle here with the thighs pointing out to the side. And I place one hand on top of the other, so my left hand is on top. And we're just going to explore stretching the shoulder blades without moving the rest of the body. So I'm going to ask you to exhale and see if you can slide your left hand as far forward as you can without moving your chest from that vertical line. And then draw the hand back as you exhale and see how far you can get. So as you lengthen forwards, you're going to try and push your shoulder blade as far forward as you can. And then on the retraction, you're going to squeeze the shoulder blades together as much as you can. Now we're used to shoulder shrugging, squeezing the shoulder blades together as a pair, but in isolation, it really does make you focus a little bit more on what's happening underneath the shoulder blade. It's really simple. It's moving with our breath. You do get a little bit of movement through the chest backwards and forwards. It's not a problem. We're just trying to minimize it. And be very aware in our mind, almost seeing, visualizing your own shoulder blade moving around behind you, sliding across the back of your ribs. And then we'll come back into neutral position and we'll go over to the opposite side, do the same. We'll just set ourselves up. Now I'm going to end up leaning on my ear that's got the microphone in, so that might not work very well. Just stretch forwards with the hand. Exhale. Inhale back. And exhale forwards. And noticing how that feels also in the shoulder blades. Is it easier to move one than the other? Do they glide smoothly and evenly, or are they a little bit sticky? Sometimes I use the word gritty as well. You can sort of feel them clunk and grind a little bit as the tissues roll over. And if that's the case, then you would benefit from doing this on a regular basis, maybe creating your own sort of mini 15-minute yoga practice where you look after your shoulders and your hips particularly. And mobilize the spine. Set yourself up for the day, really. And then we'll come back into the center. And we're going to take it a little bit further this time. So we come over to the first side, same position, one hand on top of the other. And we're going to take the left hand and just draw the fingers across the floor, making this semicircle. So we're going to slowly take the hand up above our head. And as we exhale, we try and keep the fingertips on the floor, roll the shoulder back down to the ground until we're 180 degrees. And then we'll float back the same way. There are different ways of coming in, but we're going to do this today. And then we'll just float around again. Now, if the legs do separate a little bit, not that worried about it. We're not really focusing at the moment on where the legs are. We're getting rotation and spinal twists. We're getting shoulder mobility. We'll take one more of those. Now, if you need to adapt and bend the elbow at all, that's not a problem. Come back into our spine, take a little breath, roll across to the other side, set ourselves up. And then when you're ready, you begin. So that top hand just floats over. So I start with the palm down, but I finish with the palm up. You can move as slowly as you wish with your breath. So if you've got a little bit quicker breath, you move a little faster, you'll do a high number of reps. You're still all going to get the benefit of the stretch. Now, stretching enough, I can feel a difference in the front chest muscles from side to side. Shoulder muscles feel pretty much the same. That's a good sign. That's such a good sign that I can feel a difference in tightness across the pectorals. But there we go. Here's what it is. Do a class with 1,000 planks the night before. Probably going to end up with chest muscle pain the next day. Okay, we'll take one more of these. And I'm going to take that right hand onto my chest, fold onto the left side, use my hands to press up, and then I bring myself gently back up to a nice seated posture. And I'm going to draw the bolster in and use that for sitting up. I'm going to take it in hero's pose. So I thread that bolster towards the heels and then bring the knees together, sitting back. Now, I'm only doing this because we're going to be here for about 7 or 8 minutes. And that's a long time to be sitting in a really deep kneel. Some people find that not a problem at all. Their blood flow through the legs is able to cope with that. But for many of us, the stress on the knees, the quads, blood flow can mean that when we move into the next thing, you haven't got any legs underneath you, which we're going to try to avoid. So we're just going to sit here in what is called hero's pose. Vasisthasana. And then we'll bring the fingertips onto the collarbones once we're sitting up nice and tall. So I'm using the bolster. It could be a block and a couple of bricks. Bring the elbows together and inhale, lift them up as high as you can and roll them back. So you gently squeeze the shoulder blades together and bring the elbows in towards the ribs. The fingers will lift away a little bit from the collarbones, and then you can bring them back in as the elbows come across the front of the chest, low and lifting up slowly past the eyes. Now you are going to get a little bit of flexion and extension in the spine, which sometimes we try to avoid, and we make an effort to draw the core in. Today, I'm going to go the other way and say, just let that really open up, kind of let it rip off a little bit to get as much rounding and extension in the spine as you wish to take. You can lift the chest up as well with the elbows. Roll it back, squeeze. You can arch your back a little bit, forward it into a little bit of a bend, forwards. And then we're going to take it the opposite way for a couple of revolutions. And just bring the hands back out in front. So I'm going to put the little finger so it touches and the thumb. The rest of the hand is open. So it's like you're looking into a little bit of a cup. I'm going to have the hands in front of the heart and let the head hang down. So getting a nice stretch into the back of the neck. It's a moving posture. We're going to work with the breath coming up and lifting the hands towards the sky. And we're going to keep the eyes on the hand. So the head is tilting back slowly. And we're going to stretch out until we can get those arms as straight as possible and the shoulders lifting a little bit. And then we'll bring it back down as we exhale. So inhale all the way up and exhale on the way down. So again, we're working on flexion and extension in the spine and in the neck. And it's that last half an inch or so as you lift your hands up that it feels like it's doing all the work. And then the hands come back into the heart. And we release. Nice and easy. Shake out the hands a little bit and we'll take hold of our strap. So if you have a strap like me with a buckle in, you put that into the left hand today and just bind the strap around a couple of times so that the buckle isn't going to slip out and end on your cranium, which would be amusing to anyone else in the class, but not particularly to the person that happened to. Now take the left hand up towards the sky and then bend the elbow and take the hand behind the back of the neck towards the middle of the shoulders, as low as you can get. Then take the right hand out and then just turn the palm out, so thumb down, and then slowly move it around. And the slow moving around is actually quite important. It gives your shoulder a little bit of chance to understand where it's going before you grab hold of the strap and start to feed your fingers up your spine to bring the hands as close together as you can. And you don't want to overcook it at this stage because we've still got a little bit of work to do. Once you're in a comfortable position and you've got hold of a nice amount of strap in both hands, you're going to draw the elbows back a little bit, draw the ribs down a little bit so the core engages, and then you're going to lift your upper elbow up and your lower elbow down. So it's a back, up and down for the shoulders, and the ribs drawing down a little bit. So we're starting to engage the core muscles a touch. There's a little contraction. Isometric contractions are held generally for about 30 seconds plus, but certainly not 5 or 6 minutes. So we'll go for the 30. And we can release. And then we'll take the strap into the other side, move the buckle across. Take that hand up towards the sky and stretch it up. And when you're ready to drop the hand down as you bend the elbow. Take the left hand out, turns outwards, comes around smooth and slow. So there's plenty of time for the muscles to open and glide around. Bring the hand behind. Find your strap. Start to lift the hands up and then wiggle a little closer. So that strap just helps you get a little bit more into the muscles. And you don't have to be to the same place on both sides. It doesn't matter if there's a big gap, difference. When you're ready, draw the ribs down, elbows back a little bit, and then up and down. Remember to breathe. Now, another thing you can do is imagine that you're pressing your shoulder blades through your chest to the front of your chest. That's another way of drawing the elbows towards the back of the mat. The same effect, just mentally as a different consideration, a different connection. And we can release from there as well. So, nice gentle stretch. The next one is a little bit of a challenge. So we're going to bring the hands together and interlace the fingers nicely. Bring the heels of the hands together and then bend the elbows. Try and drop the shoulders a little bit and have the elbows out about shoulder height, forearms vertical. And then what we're going to do is we're going to press as hard as you can, but still being able to breathe, your forearms together. And if your arms are anything like my arms, they start trembling and shaking straight away. So we're going to spend a couple of seconds just getting used to the idea of that. Now keep pressing them together, and we're going to try to draw a circle with the elbows. So we'll go out to the left, up a little bit, over to the right, and back down. So make these circles. They're not going to be big. They'll be about the size of a saucepan that you use for boiling an egg in, which I don't know is in inches, but I know sort of circumference-wise what I'm looking at. This is very tough. We're still trying to squeeze the forearms together a little bit. And then keeping the forearms together, we'll go the opposite way. Remember, you still need to be able to breathe. It's like the most painful thing I've ever imagined doing in a yoga class, which is not what you would think would be the thing that would cause you the most pain. But those pectorials do strongly disagree with the idea of doing this. Come back in and release. Feels like I've been doing bench presses for an hour. But I'd known it was that easy. You only need to spend a minute and a half. Okay, going to move the bolster out to the side and come up onto all fours. We'll take a little bit of cat-cow. But the cat-cow, we're going to come up onto the fingertips. Draw the chest forwards a little bit. Tilt the pelvis around the spine, draw the belly in. Let the head drop naturally. Inhale forwards. And exhale back. Now, if fingertips are problematic, maybe a little bit of arthritis or something like that starting, then knuckles down on the ground onto fists works just as well. It's just to elevate the cat-cow into a slightly different position. So using that method of changing things around a little bit to surprise the body rather than doing the same thing for years and years and years in the same way. Doesn't have to be a big change, as we can see. And then we'll come back down onto the hands for a traditional looking plank. So I'm going to spread the fingers out. The first thing I would ask is before you lift into the plank is to try and get the biggest gap between your little finger and your thumb. So really spread the hands out. Roll the shoulders back a little bit, and then take the legs back slowly into your plank position. So you want your hips to be pretty much the height of your shoulders. And this is called a push me pull you in plank position. So we're going to press away from the floor and open out the shoulder blades. And then we're going to push the chest back down to the ground and squeeze the shoulder blades together. Push away, pull down. So the arms stay straight. We move all of about 2 inches or 3. You have to keep the core muscles drawn in and the legs strong. It's only a little movement and it's slow as well. Try and keep the head in the same plane the whole way through rather than moving that around. Otherwise you can tend to lead with your head. Oof. Couple more. Last one. And then knees to the ground. Ooh. Back onto the heels and just shake out those wrists. Now, if you've got plenty of traction, we're going to come into plank again, but we're going to take the hands off of the mat. Now, when I do that, I tend to do my plank with my fingers pointing out considerably more than I do in normal plank with fingers forwards. So I make sure my shoulders are in line with my heel of my hand, and then take my body out. I'm just going to hold. Belly in, tailbone lifts a little bit, and press out through the heels, keeping the head in line. And then we'll bring the knees back down to the floor. We'll take the knees wide and heels together, sitting back into child's pose. And we're going to bring the hands onto the center line of the mat. So we'll have right hand down, left hand on top. And then let the head hang in between the arms, getting close to the floor. And I'll stretch my left hand as far forward as I can, keeping the right hand where it was. Now, depending on how far you took your hands forwards in the first place, it probably take a little bit on how much extra movement you get. Once you've been here for a few breaths, you might find that you can actually just still walk the hand even further out. And find a new limit. And breathe 4 or 5 times and see if you can move again. And if you can't, you definitely know you've reached the end. And then we'll bring the hands back on top of each other. And change the hands over. Let the head come back down towards the ground. Take a few breaths here. And we'll stretch the right hand towards the top hand. See if we can move again. Again, if you've got any extra space. Bring the hands back. We'll start to move into standing postures. So come back up onto the knees, into a tabletop. We'll just tuck the toes underneath and then sit back onto the heels. Bring the hands in and then let the knees lift off. So we've just moved into a nice little squat position, squatting down. Keeping the fingers out in front, going to let the head stay low and just slowly lift the hips up towards the sky. So we open out the back of the legs gently, walk the fingers in, comfortable position. Keeping the fingers on the floor and just letting the back of the legs open out a fraction. Now we don't have to obsessively lock out the legs into straight legs. The fact that they're tight and that we're lifting up the hips, regardless of where you get to, those muscles are going to be stretching out. It doesn't matter whether you've got a big bend or a little bend. That's more to do with what your natural hamstring length is than anything else. Okay, we'll take a little lift from here. We'll soften the knees even more. Start to bring the chest forwards, hands onto the hips, squeeze the shoulder blades together, and then drive through the legs to lift up. All right, let's shake that out a little bit, walking up to the front of the mat. And as I do, I'm going to bend down and find me a strap. Blimey, there's one just at the end of the mat where I needed it. And then I'm going to turn sideways. And I'm going to take a nice big step out. I'm going to take a little time to kind of wriggle the legs out as much as I can. come into a star shape. So I can focus on, out of my peripheral vision, seeing that both hands are about the same height from the floor. I can try and relax the shoulders down a little bit. And get used to the idea of drawing the tailbone down towards the floor. So it tilts the pelvis a little bit and get a little bit of contraction in the abdominal muscles. Trying to hold that feeling, turn your feet towards the front of the mat so that you come into a warrior two position. Then bring your hands back in and just move the strap off and have those in front of your chest. Now, I've got the strap over my thumbs, my fingers are opened out, and then I'm going to lift the elbows out to shoulder height. So the strap is just in front of my heart. I'm going to keep the back hand where it is and slide the front hand out into a position where the wrist looks like I've got a bow and arrow. Make sure I've got a nice strong grip. Take a breath, and then I'm going to see if I can pull that strap apart a little bit more. That's another isometric contraction for about 30 seconds or so. Whilst you're stretching the arms apart, keep pressing the legs down, remember your tailbone. It's strange that 30 seconds in some poses feels very much longer than 30 seconds in other poses. And we release. Let the hands come down. We're going to straighten the front leg and turn the toes back towards the long side of the mat. Take a little breath. Strap over the shoulders, come into our star shape. Then out through the fingers, drop the shoulders down, tuck the tailbone in. And then slowly turn the feet towards the back end of the mat and sink into warrior two position again. Bring the hands back in, move the strap off. Strap over the thumbs, lift the elbows. Give a nice strong position for your warrior two. Archer's pose. Take a breath and then start to draw the arms apart. And then we can release. And we'll let the strap down onto the floor, zigzag the toes back in, and then we'll come up to the front of the mat. We'll take a little breath, take the hands to the sky on the inhale, hands into the heart, first standing forward fold, draw the belly in, come down slow, and we're going to take the right foot to the back of the mat. Check your front knee is over your ankle and bring your hands onto the front thigh to lift up. So easing ourselves into a high crescent pose. If you want to move the feet a little bit wider or just to play around for your balance, you can do. And then once you're ready, you're going to take the hands, interlace the fingers again, and bring the hands up above the head. So the palms are facing down, stretching the wrists and shoulders towards the sky. Breathe in. And then as you exhale, you're going to lower the hands down towards your head, but try and draw the elbows apart. The fingers lock and stop the hands coming apart. Inhale back up. And exhale out slowly, using the whole of your breath. Inhaling up. Exhaling it out. One more. Release the hands at the bottom. Hands come back onto the thighs. Lean forward slowly. Use the hands down to the floor. Take a little step into the front of the mat. Fold in deep. Bring the hands onto the hips. Soften the knees. Flat back to lift. We'll take ourselves to the second side. Inhale up. Hands through the heart. Draw the belly in, weight into the toes. Left foot back. Check your knee position on the front leg. Bring the hands onto the side to lift slowly. As you exhale, draw the belly in a little bit to help with the lift. Adjust the feet as you need to. Float the arms above your head. Interlace your hands low down on top of the skull. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, stretch it out as you drop. Inhale up. And exhale out. Three more. Last one. The hands release. Back onto that front thigh. Lean forward. Take a little breath. We step in. Fold deep. Hands onto the hips. Soften the knees a little. Lift up. Take the hands high again on the breath in. Hands into the heart. Exhale forwards. Weight into the toes. Get those thighs to lift. Step back into down dog. And then we'll move straight into a plank position to bring the knees down to the floor underneath. So we're in tabletop. I'm going to thread the needle. So we're going to take the right arm up towards the sky on the breath in. And on the exhale, fold that under. Shoulder and ear to the ground. Press away. Inhale up. Fold it under. Two more times. Back into the tabletop position to take the left hand. Try and keep your shoulder and ear coming down into the same line that they have when you're in that tabletop position. It's easy to kind of lean back a little bit. And progressively, your bum gets closer to your heels. Come up for the last time. And floating through. Back onto all fours. Just sit gently back. I'm going to move that bolster into the front of my mat. So just rolling it out. And then I'm going to move into down dog. Bring my feet together onto the center line. And draw the right knee in towards the chest and take the foot to the outside of the right hand. Now the foot's going to spin off a little bit. Just see if you can keep the heel on the ground. Now to keep the back leg lifted, so knee away from the floor. bring the bolster back in so I can rest my elbows. Now, if you don't need to have your elbows on the bolster, you can get right down to the floor, great, but it's a nice way of supporting yourself. And I'm going to try and bring the hips a little bit more onto the center line, keep the head in line, press the forearms into the bolster so you get that protraction through the shoulder blades that we've worked on today, and you press out through the back heel to a point that you can feel your inner groin and your buttock lifting and engaging. You can bring your knee down to the floor if you feel you need to, but if you can keep it high, that's great. If you do take the knee to the floor, then you press the shin down to the ground a little, just a little bit. I'm here for a couple more seconds, literally. Bring the hands back, move the bolster just out of the way so I can get the hands to the floor nice and easily, and then step it back into my down dog, toes together on the back of the mat. Stretch out a little here. Hopefully those shoulders feel like they're running with a new pair of freshly oiled shoulders. We've done lots of mobilization work today. It should feel a little bit different. We'll bring the left knee in, bring that foot through into the lunge. Roll our bolster back. When you're ready, elbows come down. Swing the hips back onto the center line. Get ourselves nicely lengthened out. Press away from the floor. Press out through the heel. You might notice some differences between one side of the body, the hip. The pelvis could be in quite a different orientation, which would affect the SI joint and the lower vertebrae particularly. So lots of stresses on the body here, not just the muscles, getting into tendons and ligaments territory as well. Keep pressing the forearms down. It's easy for them to go a little bit sleepy. One of the ways of checking that you're pressing down is that as you press down, your abdominal muscles kind of switch on automatically. Last breath. Ooh, hands come to the floor. Roll that bolster back out of the way. Step back into our down dog. Nice little stretch out. And then we'll let the knees come down to the floor again. Now we'll take the block behind. Take a little seat. Legs out in front. Sitting up nice and tall. Just going to take a spinal twist. Bring in the left foot underneath. Crossing the right foot over. Keeping the sitting bones on the ground. Tilt the pelvis forwards a little bit to get that little bit more extension through the spine. Take the left hand up and fold round. So we make space. It becomes easier to twist. And then we'll release. And take it across the other side. Take the hand up. Roll it across. Release from there. We'll take Janu Shastasana. So legs out in front, heels and toes together, feet flex back a little bit. Bring the right heel into the groin and let the knee down to the floor. Pack it if it doesn't reach the ground because we want to press that shin into the ground a little bit. Make sure your hips are square towards the front of the mat and put a little bendy lift into the knee that's extending out in front of you. Foot flex back and press into the heel a little bit. We lift up. Allow ourselves to come in halfway. It's about 45 degrees. Now remember, we're trying to press the shin down into the floor, and we're pressing this heel down into the ground. We're also trying to draw the left hip back a little bit so the tailbone moves towards the back of the mat. And then we're going to keep the body where it is and extend both hands out, shoulder distance apart, palms in, and see how far forwards we can lengthen the shoulders out. Then try and keep the head in line with where you think the spine is pointing. Belly drawn in. And then we'll bring the hands back. Using to lift a little bit and then draw through. So we're still trying to maintain that 45-degree angle in the body. We're not trying to come down, we're just trying to lengthen out, get a little bit further forwards. So again, just allow yourself to adjust the hips, square up, shin down or in contact with something. Heel into the floor, foot flexed, hands onto the shin, get the space. Come forwards, halfway. When I say halfway, I mean I'm moving halfway physically, but that might be halfway of what you can do. So if this is your maximum kind of stretch that you get to, then it's half of that. So you'd be up higher, not a problem. Remember that we're trying to lift out of the pelvis. We're also trying to draw this thigh back and send the tailbone back as well as focusing on that shin pressing down and the heel and the hands lengthening out to stretch the shoulders around. So a lot of things to consider. And then bring the hands back and ease in. Okay, now I'm going to bring the right heel into the groin, turn the toes out to the side a little bit. So now the thigh is pointing out about 45 degrees. I'm going to take the strap as I bring my left foot in and take the strap underneath the ball joint of the big toe, little toe, and have the hands really close towards the foot. I'm going to draw the spine up as straight as I can, lift the heel off the ground and bring the knee in towards the chest. So the heel is about the same height. Now, hopefully that shin on the bottom leg is on the floor. If it's not, you need to just tilt forwards a little bit to get some weight into there so you got some balance. Just as we did mention before with the shoulder blades, we're going to try and draw the shoulder blades through the chest. So we're starting to retract shoulder blades, but also press them into the ribs. And then we'll extend the leg out to straighten. Let's still see if we can work on those shoulder blades. So we're not too worried about how straight the leg gets or doesn't get. And you can let the strap slide through the fingers, but you want to keep those shoulders, the arms straight. And we're working on the shoulder blades, pressing through the chest. It takes quite a little bit of concentration. And then we'll release. And we'll take it to the other side. So feeding the strap under. Drawing the heel in, sit up tall. Bring the knee in towards the chest. So that's where you're already starting to excite the shoulders a little bit by drawing them in. Finding your balance point in that front leg. And then when you're ready, going to lengthen out. Make a big effort with the shoulder blades. 4 hours in a minute. And then we'll release from there. Ooh. We'll take the legs out wide, just slide off of that bolster. Sorry, block, move it out to the side. Going to take a little bit of a twist of the body towards the left leg, and then bring that left heel into the groin. And just allow myself to turn my chest gently towards that left leg. It's going to have the right hand on the right leg. The foot on the right points up towards the sky. I try and lengthen out through the heel and draw the thighs back in. So the bottom part of the leg, the hamstring and the calf are lengthening away, and the shin and the thigh are drawing back in. And then we'll release. Move into the second side. And trying to keep the thigh connected with the ground. So a little bit of downward work through there. Lengthen and draw on the long leg out to the side. Rotate the chest round till your heart points where your knee points, or as close as you can get. And then we can release from there as well. Okay, so we're going to come back down. We're going to use the blanket underneath the body. So this first version, I want to have my shoulders and my head supported by the blanket. So there's a difference in height between the ribs and the base of my spine. So take the arms out wide. Try and find the block between my thighs. Forgot about that. Relax the shoulders down a little bit. I'm going to very gently just come up onto the tiptoes and draw my knees in towards my chest. So if you've got the block, it gives you something to hold on to. If not, you're just squeezing the thighs together. I'm going to roll the legs gently over towards the right side, as far as I can go, whilst keeping my left shoulder on the ground. And I want to keep my knees and my feet off of the ground. So if you're able to go a long way, you hover just a fraction off the floor. If you're not able to go a long way, you hover where you get to. And then draw ourselves back up. And we'll do the same over to the second side. Just rolling over gently. We inhale as we go down. And a slow exhale on the way up. Across. Now, as time, try and press the right shoulder down into the floor to initiate the lift, rather than using your core muscles and the hand out to the side. We tend to press into the back of the forearm. So we're going to see if we can not do that. Press down into the shoulder on the same side to get the lift to happen. Move it across. Exhale. We'll press the shoulder blade into the mat. Across. Press. We'll do one more to each side. and come back into the center. Okay, going to take the block out and shuffle along a little bit. And I want the block, the bolster to this blanket, get there in a minute, to be a little bit further down. So that this time, my spine is still on the floor, my shoulders are supported, but my head is just hanging over the edge. So there's a base of the spine and the head are in the same place, but the chest is just a little bit lifted. Now, if that feels comfortable in your spine, you can lengthen your legs out. Take Shavasana there, or you can keep the knees high and feet wide and just let the legs rock in. You might even start there for a minute or two, and then decide that it's okay to lengthen the legs out. If there's any pinching in the spine, particularly the lower back and the neck, then you want to adjust to a position where it feels like it's not pinching. And then roll the shoulders down as much as you can. Soften the jaw, relax the hands, let everything sink down to the mat. And then a couple more minutes here in this restorative chest opening Shavasana. Interesting to see how the chest muscles and the shoulder muscles feel. If we increased our awareness of those parts of the body, do they feel symmetric or asymmetric? Are we able to relax in both shoulders equally? Begin to stretch the fingers and toes, all the wrists and ankles. Breathe a little deeper into that open chest. Stretch out in any way that feels good. Slide the heels back in. Go into a very gentle hug. And the spine is in a slightly different position to normal. So it will be tricky to lift the head away from the floor. So we're going to keep it down on the ground. And then when you're ready, we'll rock over to the right side. So Tuck into a little bit of a fetal position, stay there for a few breaths. Use the hands on the exhale to press down into the floor gently to lift up. Sit up nice and tall. See how those brand new shoulders feel. And your hands in towards your heart. So you take a breath in. And closing the eyes, we'll let the chin drop. Begin to exhale, draw the belly in. Let ourselves bow to the floor to seal our practice. Inhale, breath comes back in. Lifting high. Eyes open. Namaste. Thank you for joining me. I'm playing with all of the yoga toys today. Hope you enjoyed. See you on the mat soon.